Okay, my name's Glyn and I'm going to be talking about mono recording, specifically to do with the Rolling Stones' new box set. Back in the early 60s, recording was done in 3-hour increments with a very small budget. In those 3 hours, you were expected to record at least 3 tunes, maybe 4 if you could get them in. Not many people got to make albums in those days. You only got to make an album if you'd had a successful career prior to that, but selling singles and EPs. You got to make an EP if you had hit singles. Everything was done in mono. There was no demand for stereo at all. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that really classical music was the only thing that was recorded in stereo specifically. Popular music there was no demand for it. So hi-fi freaks bought stereo classical recordings, and it wasn't for many years after that that people started getting into stereo, and we then had to start making stereo mixes of what we were doing. But all the effort and time and the production went into the mono recording. Because we were limited to the number of tracks that we used initially, I'd have to mix chunks of stuff together that made sense, usually the bass and drums and perhaps a rhythm guitar, maybe the piano as well on one track, a lead guitar on another, and then the vocal. So when you came to mix that in mono, none of that mattered, you just made the mono mix. But if you've got that selection of material to mix a stereo in, where you're spreading it across 2 speakers, you're pretty screwed, because you've got bass, drums, piano and a rhythm guitar on one track. Okay, so you put them in the middle. You put a tambourine on one side. You've got to put the vocal in the middle. Once it became apparent and it became important enough because there was enough demand for stereo, then we obviously had to plan more carefully about how we used whatever tracks were available to us. But it didn't always work out in the stereo mix's favour. If you want to get a really true representation of what the early Rolling Stones stuff is, then you have to listen to it in mono, because that was the way it was intended to be.